Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with a Total War Warhammer video. Today's topic are the missing units, lords, heroes and legendary characters for the Empire, so without further ado, let's begin. Of all the races in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, the Empire is perhaps the most well known. This could also be the same for the Total War Warhammer series, as the Empire has always been the poster child. Now the Empire has already received a decent number of content packs, but to call them anywhere near complete is still very far off. So let's start off with the missing units. First up we have the War Dogs, more commonly known as the Hunting Hounds. Hunting hounds are a common sight within the Empire, as these domesticated dogs have a variety of uses. Many city patrols and witch hunters make use of the hunting hound's keen sense of smell, as it comes in handy when tracking any mutants, beastmen or criminals. The hounds themselves can be rather vicious and are often gathered into large packs, especially by the northern provinces, to be used as a light shock troop on the battlefield. These would make excellent fast war machine hunters. Next would be the Wolfkin, a skirmishing-based light infantry unit. Normally the Wolfkin can have a large variety of weapons, where commonly they are seen with sword and board. However, as the Empire has an abundance of that type of troop, it could be that their variant with additional hand weapons could be used instead. These troops would be used in a similar way to Norscan marauders with additional hand weapons, where they would be lightly armoured, decently fast and effective anti-infantry. Moving on, the Warriors of Ulrich could work in a similar sense as the Wolfkin, but this time wielding the standard sword and board, as to not have too many units fulfilling the exact same role in the Total War Warhammer series. This is a common occurrence, but then again they base this off models and lore. However, units such as these would give more representation towards the Cult of Ulrich's baseline units, as currently most others already implemented into the game series in regards to the Empire focus towards Sigmar. Next we have the Knights of the White Wolf, a knightly order dedicated to the god Ulrich. The Knights of the White Wolf are heavily armoured warriors who normally wield either great weapons or other blunted weaponry into battle. They ride atop heavily armoured horses, which many claim to be as strong-willed as they are. Despite their more wild-like appearance, when comparing them to other knightly orders, the Knights of the White Wolf are as disciplined as any other. In regards to the many knightly orders within the Empire, it is possible that we simply won't see them all, due to the sheer amount of them being represented in lore. Honestly, this is understandable, as many of them have almost the exact same role in terms of combat, despite maybe a few minor differences. The Knights of the White Wolf, however, are quite unique and famous throughout the fans of the Warhammer Fantasy universe, and it would be a shame not to get these in game. Next, we have the Teutogen Guard, an elite unit within the ranks of the Knights of the White Wolf. They are heavily armoured warriors, famous for wielding massive great weapons to the battlefield. These powerful warriors charge into the battlefield, swatting any enemies that may encounter them out of the way with their impressive strength. What sets them apart from their fellow brothers in the Order is that the Teutogen Guard are more commonly seen on foot rather than horseback. Next, we have the Marienburg class land battleship. A poor imitation of the Empire steam tank, the landship was created by the merchant lords of Marienburg to have their own form of heavy machinery. The landship is large, much larger than the steam tank, but it is lightly armoured, as its main body is comprised of mostly wood rather than steel. That being said, the landship moves rather quickly so long as it moves in a straight line, and has a large host of various weaponry mounted upon it, making it rather devastating against enemy armies. Not many exist in the lore, so it could be that the landships could be rather limited in the same sense on how Dread Saurians are recruited, but they should only be able to be recruited by Empire armies as long as they control Marienburg itself. For our last generic unit, we have the Celestial Hurricanum. The Hurricanum is very similar to the Luminarch of Hysh. Both are used as conduits for their respective winds of magic, further enhancing the wizard's battle capabilities. The Wind of Azir is powerful enough as it is, but when fueled by a conduit, it can be a very terrifying force of destruction. With that, we've looked at the missing units likely to be added in for the Empire. Now let's check out the generic Lord and Hero choices. First, we have the Grand Master of the Knightly Orders. Each knightly order of the Empire has a Grand Master. These are their leaders and act as representatives within the Empire. Grand Masters could be implemented as a lord choice whose focus is based around mounted combat. Grand Masters normally look very visually distinct from each other, normally the same as their members of their respective order, but I imagine that they would be given a generic look so as not to have multiple lords who do exactly the same thing. I think that's quite a fair compromise, don't you? Next we have the Wizards of the Gold Order in the form of a hero. Currently 7 out of the 8 main laws of magic are represented within the Empire, barring the Wind of Chaman. Yes, we do have access to Balthasar Gelt, but that is the only character within the Empire able to use that law of magic, which is a shame as that specific law does play quite well and was very popular within the fans of the tabletop. While we're on the topic of the Wizards of the Empire, seeing as the High Elves have now received their Archmages, meaning that they may finally have spellcasters as Lord choices, also having this option for the Empire, or any other faction really, would be a welcome addition. Next we have the Master Engineer, a hero choice which is focused around buffing the various types of machinery and black powder weapons available to the Empire. The Master Engineer would itself have access to different types of weaponry, such as repeater handguns, long rifles, and so on, making him quite dangerous in different situations. The Master Engineer should also be decently mobile, being able to travel across the battlefield to different siege weapons quite quickly. And so with that, they should have access to the famed mechanical steeds, durable metal horses which are decently resistant to damage and never tire, meaning that they should be able to travel to different points of the battlefield without having to slow down. Plus it looks rather cool, doesn't it? This is the great thing about the Warhammer Fantasy universe, a lot of these things are just based around cool factor. And lastly we have the Warrior Priest of Ulrich. The Warrior Priest of Ulrich works in an identical way to the standard Warrior Priest, however its prayers are themed around Ulrich instead of Sigmar. While they are essentially the same thing in terms of mechanics, they do differ visually, and I believe it would be great to add more influence from Ulrich in the Empire, seeing as Ulrich is another major god of course. Before we move on to the missing named characters, we do have one specific mount option missing from the Empire, that of the Imperial Dragon. The Imperial Zoo has one known dragon within its stables, and Karl Franz has been known to ride atop of it during times of great need, where even Deathclaw, despite its great strength, may not be enough. There are also other dragons known within the Empire, but we'll get to them soon enough. Now we'll look towards the missing named characters. Before we begin, however, it is important to note that some characters may be intentionally omitted, as some of them would not make any sense to add into the game series, such as certain Supreme Patriarchs, as Balthasar Gelt is the current reigning Supreme Patriarch. First we have Luther Huss, the Prophet of Sigmar. Luther is a warrior priest whose faith and devotion to his god are unparalleled. Luther has spent many years travelling throughout the length and breadth of the Empire, seeking those faithful and killing heretics that may bring harm to his holy empire. None can be considered as faithful as he, where even fellow warrior priests are wary of his presence, worried that they may be accused of corruption in some way, shape or form. Next is Ludwig Schwarzhelm. Age has not slowed down this mighty warrior one bit, where he proudly rides into battle as the Emperor's champion and bodyguard. Many warriors look up to Ludwig, seeing his advanced age, yet powerful iron will as Sigmar's will made manifest. He is dedicated to the protection of Karl Franz, his emperor and his friend, and would proudly give his life should it ever be needed. Moving on we have Kurt Helborg, the Grand Master of the Reichsguard and the Reichsmarshal of the Empire. Helborg is known throughout the vast reaches of the Warhammer world as perhaps the greatest swordsman within the Empire. The only issue I see with this character is that his runefang is currently in Solent in the Mortal Empires campaign, but that should be easy enough to replace with another Imperial relic. Really not much needs to be said about this character considering how famous he actually is. Next we have Emil Valgir, the High Priest of Ulrich and leader of the Cult of Ulrich. A fierce warrior and a proud follower of the god of winter and wolves, Emil is old but respected and feared. He has a genuine love for the Empire and wishes for the best of it as a whole. Interestingly enough, this man often serves as mediator between the Sigmarites and the Ulrichians, who are often known to have tension towards each other. Next we have Jubal Falk, a veteran of many wars and a marksman with little rival. Falk is the leader of many iron companies, the standing armies of the city of Null. While he is indeed a minor character in lore, only appearing in the Thrones of Chaos supplement, this could be a decent unique legendary hero taking aspects from both the Master Engineer and the Hunters of the Empire. Moving on we have Theodor Brockner, the Hound of Judgment. Theodor is a staunch defender of the city of Null, the personal executioner via trial by combat to any who may break its laws. He rides atop a huge demigryph known as Reaper. Their very presence inspires the hearts of his men and brings fear to his enemies. Theodor loves his province and his city and would easily give his life to its defense without question. Next we have Lady Elseth von Draken, the Dark Lady of Null. a lore master in the lore of death that rides into battle upon a fierce and extremely rare carmine dragon. She is very old by human standards, yet she does not seem to age. Many believe she has mastery over the fates of time and death, where rumors state that she may also be something more altogether. And while many are wary of her, it cannot be questioned that her loyalties lie within the Empire, even if it is for her own personal gains. We've covered almost every possible character to be added into the Total War Warhammer series. Now all we have to do is look towards the Elector Counts themselves. There could be a problem here, honestly, considering the fact that each Elector Count would have to start out in their own Imperial province. It could be that there would be too many named characters in that area, leading to, well, a lot of bloat, very similar to how Lustre is currently feeling in the Mortal Empires. That being said, personally I hope that we see them all implemented into the Total War Warhammer series, but I can understand if it's the case that we don't. First, we can look towards Boris Todbringer, mainly because this could be rather short and brief. We all know that Boris is going to get his day in the sun eventually. This was pretty much confirmed by Creative Assembly themselves. He's already in game, they just need to flesh out his specific units, some mechanics, maybe even some better voice acting, and he'll be done and dusted. It's not a matter of if he ever gets implemented as a playable legendary lord with his own start position, mechanics and so on, but rather when. Now we'll look towards Marius Leitdorf, the Mad Count of Averland, and my personal favourite Elector Count. Marius is insane, that's pretty much all I can say about him. He's led armies against imaginary foes, he's caused many problems towards the Halflings of the Empire, and most of his fellow peers see him more as a fool than anything else. That being said, however, Marius's allegiances lie firmly within the Empire, not for his own province, but for the Empire as a whole, going as far as eventually heroically sacrificing himself in an effort to turn back a large greenskin invasion. This character, like Boris, had his own unique model, and despite the fact that he's dead in official lore, in the timeline of Total War Warhammer, where Karl Franz has recently ascended as Emperor, Marius is very much alive, and a prime candidate for a legendary lord slot considering that he had rules in 8th edition. Next we have Aldebrand Ludenhof, the Elector Count of Hochland. Very tall and thin, but very strong and fit. The Elector Count of Hochland is very famous for his skills at hunting, specifically for hawking. It is said that he had some sort of kindred spirit with these majestic birds and always rode into battle with a hawk carried upon his arm. With an interesting point here in lore, this character could be a very possible candidate for a cross-game DLC between the Empire and the Warriors of Nurgle, as when Ludenhof's son fell sick, a cloaked doctor made his appearance known, giving him a potion that should have returned him back to health. However, this doctor was Festus the Leech Lord, where Ludenhof's son unfortunately was transformed by this concoction into a mighty mutant and now belonged to Papa Nurgle. Next we have Theoderic Gorsur, the Elector Count of Nordland. He is a traditionalist by all means of the word, a very proud and stubborn man that believes that the city of Marienburg, and indeed a lot of the greater Drakwold Forest, should belong to him and his province. His biggest ambition is to bring the free city of Marienburg and the wasteland back into the Imperial control. Obviously this has made him rather infamous and very much hated within the city of Marienburg, whose population would rather see him dead than in control of the city. Next we have Valmir von Raukov, the Elector Count of Ostland. Valmir is famously known for his fighting capabilities, as his province is often beset by many Chaos warbands, Northman raiders, orcs and so much more. He was only recently promoted to the rank of Elector Count, as before then someone else held the title, but this Elector Count had long been dead, replaced with a follower of Tzeentch. After this imposter had been killed, Karl Franz proclaimed that it should be Valmir who should now lead and protect Ostland. Next we have Wolfram Hertwig, the Elector Count of Ostermark, a very stubborn and proud man whose pure stubbornness has almost led to his death on a number of occasions. He rides into battle upon his griffin known as Bloodfeather and has always been quite keen on a good fight, and his pride has made him rather easy to manipulate by the Emperor Karl Franz. Next we have Alberich Haupt Andersen, the Elector Count of Stirland, a proud and loud man, and rightfully so, for it is his people that keep the dead from Sylvania from engulfing the Empire. Stirland has faced many troubles, but it is his iron will that keeps his warriors fighting. By his command, the dead will not pass the borders of Sylvania. Next we have Helmut Feuerbach, the Elector Count of Talabecland. Known for his extreme temper, he is not loved by his people. where many would rather see the throne of Talabecland literally ruled by anyone else but him. His temper has almost led to multiple engagements with other imperial provinces, and were it not for the sharp skill of Karl Franz, Helmut might have led the empire into another civil war, very much so like during the time of the three emperors. And lastly, we have Emanuelle von Leibnitz, the Elector Countess of Wissenland. Emanuelle is not the best example for an Elector Count. She is rather vain and more concerned about her own luxuries than that of her own people. And her only interest was that of the city of Null instead of Wissenland completely, where it is known that she tried to divorce the city from the province, allowing for a new imperial province to be created. Thankfully, however, this never got to happen, but she's never really been that active within her province, so much so that lesser lords seem to govern more than she does. Many of her people consider her selfish and empty-headed, but still she continues to rule. Now, before we end this video, I also want to talk about a sub-faction which could be featured with the Empire, so I wanted to give them their own specific slot at the end of the video, that of the Halflings. So the Halflings themselves are members of the Empire, having their own right to vote on who could be the next Emperor. Given the fact that there's not that many Halflings known in lore, and the fact that most of them are within the moot, it could be that we'll never see this as a playable faction in their own right. We've discussed this previously in its own video, however what I would like to think is that we could possibly get some Halfling units, maybe around 2 or 3 different types and a hero or lord choice, as playable units and characters within the Empire roster. They wouldn't need their own specific start position or anything, it could just be that you could only recruit them directly from the moot, so you'd need to actively try and capture it, but you know, they're well known in the lore. Yes, they're a bit of a joke faction, but at the end of the day, well, they're still kinda well loved by all the fans worldwide. And honestly, it would be a massive shame if we never had any Halfling representation in the game as playable units. But this was my list on the missing lords, heroes, units, named characters, and sub-race that should be featured within the Empire in Total War Warhammer. Are there any that I missed out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion, shall we? But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below, we have various different social media links such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team, talk to us about Total War, Warhammer, or just anything, really. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games, where you could get loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Purchasing using this link and also using our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons, your support means the world to us. Honestly, it's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to our patrons Gibraltar LUSC and Ryan Bertsche for subscribing to us at our Fane level. Honestly, you guys are super cool. And a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, the channel's been growing a lot lately, and it's all thanks to you guys. Without you, the Great Book would be nothing. We're trying to implement more videos into the channel soon, but we're getting stuff done outside of YouTube at the moment, just like artwork and so on for the channel. It's just taking a little while to get everything to look to a standard that we feel is cool. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for all the support lately. It's been amazing. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.